Hello, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark und freilich, begashmis und beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong and happy physically and spiritually. Today is a very, very great day. Zois Chanukah. It's the last day of Chanukah, and we're going to speak a thought for the week and connect it to the festival of Chanukah. This Sunday, Mr. Hashem, is going to be Hey Tevis, which is a celebration by Chabad called the Dan Notzach, a day of victory. I don't think we're going to have time to talk about it, but still I'll mention it. I mentioned last time that these days our hearts and mind is with our brothers and sisters in Eretz Yisrael. They're in the midst of a war, and that we're adding in doing Torah and mitzvahs on the three al shloisha dvarim ha'ila meimed al Torah v'al avodah v'al gemilas chasadim. We're going to speak Torah, we're going to say a prayer, and we're going to give charity. So here's the tzedakah. G'dayla tzedakah shemekareves ha'gula. In the merit of this tzedakah, Mashiach should come now. Now we'll say a prayer. One of the special things about Chanukah is that every single day we recite the entire Hallel. So we said this morning the pasuk, Mikimi meyafar dal, meyashpos yorim evyoin, loishivim nedivim amoi. It's two psukim, and it says we turn to the Eibishter and we say, He raises the poor from the dust, lifts the destitute from the trash heap, to seat them with the nobles of His people. So I'm sorry to say this past week was a very, very difficult week. In the war, just in one day, we lost 9 Neshamas Yisrael soldiers in an ambush. And I'm sure we have to feel the pain of the parents. And we definitely feel how is the Eibush going to lift up the spirits of these people that felt the ultimate price that you could feel in this world? Hashem Yirachem, no person should have to go through such pain, ever. So the Eibush should bring Mashiach right now. So we should see the ultimate Mikime me offer dol me ashbeis yarem evyoin. We should see Mamish right now how He raises the poor from the dust. Any person who feels poor, lacking, and diminished in any way, shape, or form should be uplifted by Hashem right now. Okay, we're going to Parshas Mikeitz. That's this week's Parsha. We'll start with a question from the Rebbe. This is a Sicha in Chelik Tes Vov. I'm just going to say one small word from the Sicha. That's in Chelik Tes Vov. And the word I'm going to say is coming from page 345, Chelik Tes Vov. And that is, the Parsha starts off that Paroi had a dream, and Yosef was remembered as the one who could interpret dreams, and Paroi told him his dream. There were 7 fat cows and then 7 thin cows. Learn yourself the beginning of the Parsha. And he had another dream about the grain stalks of produce. And Paroi called all of his necromancers, I don't know what you call them, to interpret the dream. And they weren't able to interpret the dream. And Rashi says, the ain poisel oisam Paroi. No one could interpret the dreams for Paroi. Poisrim hoyu oisam. They gave interpretations. Avaloy Paroi, but not for Paroi. Shaloy koilon nichnas ba'oznav. He didn't accept their interpretations. He did not have any peace of mind, but pursuing them the way they interpret it. And they said, Sheva bonis atamoylid, v'sheva bonis atakoiver. You're going to have 7 daughters, then you're going to bury 7 daughters. Anyways, Paroi didn't accept any one of the dreams. So the Rebbe asked in the Sikha, 2 questions basically. Number 1, why weren't they able to interpret the dreams? Like, it was such a brilliant thing that Yosef said, like, why couldn't they interpret the dreams? And also, what makes Yosef's interpretation different and special? Okay, so before we get to that, let's now talk about Chanukah. The Rebbe in Likutei Sichos, and it's explained in Chassidus in many places. And what I'm saying now is from Likutei Sichos, volume 2, page 481, 482, and this we spoke about once before. What was the war of Chanukah? It was a spiritual war. As is known, that's what we celebrated primarily with oil and with saying Hallel, in contrast to Purim, which is more a physical war, meaning to say the intent was annihilation of the Jewish nation. That was the open objective of Haman. There was universal kill Jew day. Chanukah was a different story. They said, we love the Jews, we love Jewish humor, we love Jewish logic, we love Jewish talent, but just get rid of God. That idea. As it's well known and explained in all the discourses of Chassidus. And basically, in Chelik Beis, the Rebbe focuses on the point that what it says about the Greeks, the Syrians, were Timu kol hashmanim shebeheichel. They defiled all the oil in the Beis HaMikdash. So one could ask, usually when you're fighting an enemy, let's say we know with many wars, it was about attacking their fuel. Either destroying it so the enemy wouldn't have fuel, or looting it, taking it for yourself. Over here, it doesn't say that they smashed the bottles. It doesn't say that they stole the shemen. It says they defiled it. What's the concept? What is this about? So the Rebbe explains, based on Chassidus, shemen goes on wisdom. What they wanted to do, this was their objective, was to defile Torah wisdom. In other words, to corrupt it, to make it secularized. And in today's language, you can call it woke. What does that mean? So Chassidus explains the difference between Torah logic, and this is why it says, Lashkichem Torah secha. They wanted us to learn Talmud, learn Torah, but don't mention that it's God's wisdom. Don't mix in God, holiness, divinity. Just learn it as logic. Wherever it says, we'll read the Bible as legends, as inspiration, as beautiful stories, as literature, but we'll just take out the word God wherever God is mentioned. We'll censor the word God out of the Bible, and it'll be so fantastic. It'll be the greatest book of inspiration that ever was. So, this is the contrast. We have Seichel and Chochmah, the Kedusha of Torah, and we have Seichel and Chochmah of Klippa. What's the difference? I spoke about this once before. Look up Mikeitz Chanukah, I think 5781. That Seichel Eliki, Chochmah Satira starts from God, from Hashem. That's first of all. And second of all, the whole approach is through a person's humility. Since it's about humility, so therefore we reach true objectivity, we put ourselves aside, and therefore the ego doesn't get in the way, and therefore we come to God's truth. It starts with something which is greater than us. And therefore the more we drink and we eat from this wisdom, the more humble you become. And in Judaism, the great scholars, according to the measure of their wisdom, was their level of humility. And by the world we see the opposite. That the wisdom of the secular studies, so-called wisdom, actually causes you to have more arrogance. Arrogance begets arrogance, Metzias begets Metzias, and Bittul begets Bittul. And that's why Timu kol hashmanim shebeichel. They wanted to tell the person, you see, you're looking at this wisdom, and you're saying it's different, because it has Chesoma Shel Kohen Gadol, the concept of Kedusha. That's what a Kohen has, a special level of sanctity. We're just going to touch it, nah. What's the difference? Could you show me physically, according to the physical senses, by any laboratory or machine that's going to measure a barometer, what makes this different than this? You can't with the physical eyes. So therefore, it's nothing. It's ridiculous. And that was the war. The war was we have to leave the wisdom of Torah pure and understand that it's something that's godly and divine. And then we come to truth. Now what's so unbelievably amazing, what's going on, everybody knows right now, both about the failure of the institutions on their students, that the education has failed, that right when the war started, there were the protests taking place in Harvard and Columbia and this university and that university, and how terrible it was. How could it be that these institutions of higher learning are producing such caliber students? This is what it means to be a graduate of Harvard and Oxford and Cambridge and whatever it is? That you're actually marching for the murderers? How could you have such moral rot? But wait, there's more. Everyone knows the story that when 3 of the presidents of these universities were questioned in Congress that they should say clearly if the word genocide of the Jewish people represents something which is harassing a Jew, and they couldn't answer clearly. So this is so unbelievable what happened, how we see the clear study in contrast, that what happens from Chochmas Chitzonius is that we come to moral confusion, and not only that, warped, twisted, perverted wisdom. Rahman al-Islam. If someone would have told you this story 20 years ago, you would never believe it. It's impossible. Where is the rational people? You would think l'chayra, simple logic should bring you to the right conclusions. And the answer is no, because it's based on the wrong foundations. So this is such a huge subject, and this is so important about building societies and the way forward. And for a Jew, I'll just try to contain some things that I've learned. Number one, and there could be some of these things you said before. Number one, there was a Rabbi Levi Weinberg from South Africa once came to Melbourne, and he gave a shir in Tanya. And he spoke at the end of chapter 8. And over there, the Alter Rebbe talks about Chochmas Chitzonius, secular studies, and he said it corrupts the mind, the purity of the Chochma Bina Das of the Nefesh Elikis. Now is not the place to get into the whole subject of studying secular studies, not studying secular studies, but I'm telling you what the Alter Rebbe says there, and he also explains there the exceptions when a person could study secular studies. But it comes with the warning label, beware! Your intellect will become corrupted by studying secular studies. Beware! Unless it has the right foundations, which means you have the right motive in the first place, and therefore you're on guard. So Rabbi Weinberg said a fantastic thing. He said, why is it called Chochmas Chitzonius? And he translated, simply we say, Chitzonius, it's external. Like compared to the real wisdom, the divine wisdom, when you're studying God's Torah, that's like the inner wisdom of the world, the secrets of the universe, the secrets of the existence. We're studying the inner workings of God's mind, which is higher than the physical, you could say. But if we talk about secular studies, which is all about things you could touch and smell in the physical, that's like external wisdom. But he said something unbelievable. He said, you know how you should define Chochmas Chitzonius? The science of missing the point. And he defined Chitzonius means external, but it can mean superficial, it can mean like shallow. The science of missing the point. And he gave an example, a simple example. He said, imagine you have a cow, and the cow is walking along the grass, and the cow bends down and picks up a spoon with his paw. He moves the spoon and then he puts it into his mouth, and his tongue is now going around the spoon, and he sees it's shaped like this, and then it goes like this. Registered in his brain, what's the shape of the spoon? Now, it's also registering, is it hot, is it cold? That's also registering in his brain. And he's trying to chew on it, it's registering in his brain. Is it soft, is it hard? So he has this data. He has so much data in his brain right now that it's hard, not soft, that it's temperature, whatever it is. That it's a liquid, it's not a liquid, it's not a solid, it's about its shape. He has all this information. But with all that information, he has no idea what the spoon is. Zero. Why? Because his brain was not made in such a way to be thinking in the meaning of what a spoon is. He doesn't have it there. It's not within, it's not a component in his brain that he should be able to think. To put it in different words, to be able to think about meaning and purpose. That idea, why is it shaped like that? Etc. And he says that's the whole idea. If we look at Chochmas Chitzonius, we can have reams of information, volumes of information, pages of information, but we're missing certain foundations. The why, we're missing the why, instead of just looking at the what, and therefore we know nothing. And the same is true, let's say, concerning, we've spoken about this many times, when you say, V'zeh kol adam, v'sachlis b'diyosai, uv'riyas kol ha'olam v'sel yoinim v'sechtoinim, this is what it is able tochteinim. So we understand that the purpose of our existence is not something I can discover, because the motive of why I exist came before I exist. But go over to the greatest scientists, they can't say why I exist or why they exist, because it comes before them. But they can be smart, they can be wise. It's not within the purview, so to speak, of secular sciences, secular wisdom, to be able to give you that answer. And that's what Rabbi Weinberg meant when he said Chachmas Chitzenius. It comes after meaning, it comes after purpose, and actually it comes even after morals and ethics. And therefore it's called the science of missing the point. We need a lot of the science of missing the point. How to fix a car, how to make a person healthy, no problem. There's a lot of things we have to know, and that's why we need secular studies. But it ain't going to give you the real meaning and purpose and morals and ethics. And this is one of the main points that the Rebbe spoke about when it came to World War II. We see this was the country that at that time was the most sophisticated, and culture was amazing. And they were the most advanced in the mathematics and the sciences and medicine, you name it. And they committed, in the end, the worst atrocities known to mankind. Why? Because they were missing the main foundation. Science will not make you a morally or ethical person. And that's what we have to realize. That according to the Torah, when the Torah speaks about compassion, care, mercy, kindness, it's based on the Alachta B'drachov, going Hashem's ways. In other words, who defines what's mercy? Who defines what's kindness? We need the Torah to define to us what's moral and what's kind and what's ethical and what's compassion and what's care and what's concern. Not that we have a lower level of care and concern. Of course, the supreme virtue is compassion and kindness and mercy, but only as defined according to Torah. Because if you won't get the definition according to the barometer and the definitions of Torah, you will come to something which is the opposite of mercy, the opposite of kindness, and the opposite of clarity, as we see today so clearly. And by the way, this is also connected with another point that a lot of people are asking about. They're so shocked to see that everyone's true colors are coming out about Harvard and Columbia, and these are institutions of higher learning. And what's going on? So many people have pointed out, there's a pasuk in the Nil, and the Rebbe spoke about it in the Mem Vav and Mem Zayin, about certain things. I'm going to read some words what the Rebbe said is so shocking. There's a pasuk in the Nil that it says at the end of time before Mashiach, there's going to be the time of Yisboreru, V'yislabnu, V'yitzorfu Rabim, which means things will be clarified and whitened, and many will be purified. In other words, things will become clear. Now, what that means, the Rebbe says, is that before Mashiach will come, the bad, which is in certain people, will come out. Bad, which was hidden, which we didn't see before. And the same thing is true with the good. The good that was hidden, that we didn't see, will come out before. One of the things which I think it's obvious that we could say right now what's going on, is that we see bad, which we never imagined before. Excuse me for a second. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shakel dia b'dvari. Nobody would have imagined that people would celebrate Hashem Yirachem. They could be so blind as celebrate what happened October 7th. We're talking about professors in university. And then thousands of people marching. It doesn't make sense. It's illogical. So there's this bad, for whatever reason, they're misguided, they're misinformed. But this bad is coming out. And at the same time, there's good. Some people are showing support, which you wouldn't imagine. So from some quarters, there's a good coming out. So I'll just read you quickly one sikha from Leil Zayin Mecheshvan, Tovshim Memvav. And the Rebbe over there speaks, he says, lately, there's things that have been happening that there's no explanation b'derech hateva. And in both extremes, we never realized that by such a person, there could be such good traits. And we never realized by some people, there could be some traits that are the total opposite. And the Rebbe says, the only habira yechidi shemotzosi leis ato b'inyan zeh. If the Rebbe says, the only explanation that I found for this he says is that this is one of the signs of Mashiach, and he mentions the pasuk that I said before, and he said as long as there's a mixture, that could be some person that has good or the bad in a concealed way, it's not the time of Mashiach. The time of Mashiach is that there's an explosion of both the good and the bad, and they become separate, and it becomes clear for everyone to see. And the Rebbe over says by that verbringen, the etzem, we already have enough signs that it's Mashiach time. But when the Eibishter saw that we find ourselves in Golus, and still there are those that are sleeping, Mishloft Gishmak hate, he had to show another sign. For some reason, people bow down to the idols of Harvard and Yale and Columbia and Oxford and Cambridge, and they thought that there was a truth to it. Misplaced faith and trust, instead of realizing Baruch HaGeva Shiftach Hashem. So therefore, this happened. We're not giving any excuses here. We're just saying what happened right now. People are seeing the truth. The truth came out for everyone to see. And the same thing, I'll just read you what the Rebbe said, Yud Beis Tammuz, Tovshim Mem Zayin. That I spoke about this recently, about all the signs of Mashiach, and all the things that are coming out now, negative things that previously were concealed, are now coming out. And also in the person himself, sometimes the person was fooled, and he didn't realize some negativity about himself. And the reason why this has to be revealed now is because everything has to become clear before Mashiach. Because when there's something in you which is negative, and you're denying it, so you're never going to take care of it. And we want the world to be a perfect world. People have to look inside themselves, self-examination, and see the things that are not right. And therefore, sometimes things come out right before Mashiach's time, because these are the last things that have to be fixed. So this is the same thing which is seemingly happening right now. This is an unbelievable moment of Yisbarach v'Yislam v'Yitzor Rabbim. Things are becoming clear about how things that we never imagined, clarity, moral clarity, of good and bad and ethics and morality, and these subjects are becoming clear and clear for Jews, that there's only the truth of the Torah. Shemen zay zoch b'chisom mishal koyin godel v'halachta b'drachav. When you go in the ways of the Eibishter, and then these concepts have meanings the way it is according to the truth. Okay, let's get back to Pashat Mikeitz, and then we'll finish off with one story. The Rebbe says, you'll see there in the Sikha, the problem that most of the interpreters had with the dream was that first there was the fat cows, then there was the skinny cows, and they were simultaneously being there at the same time. So the etzem idea of what Yosef said, there's going to be good years and there's bad years, that they still could have come to such a conclusion. But they couldn't realize how could it be that they're happening at the same time. So therefore they came up with different interpretations. Yosef's word was that he explained how are they there at the same time, because, and this is going to be the chiddush of Yosef, that he gave a solution straight away what Pari should do. He didn't just identify the problem. He also told him what to do. And therefore, that answered also how there could be both of these things at the same time. Because during the years that were the fat years, we have to put away to prepare for the lean years. So while we're having the fat years, we're cognizant of the lean years. So therefore they're there simultaneously. And so too works the other way around. That while we have the lean years, we're living off the things that we saved in the fat years. So therefore, they're both there at the same time. And this is the main point, that he gave him the solution. Okay? And this is what the Rebbe says, the Chiddush. He didn't just interpret it with an interpretation, but he gave a solution. I'm trying to find the pasuk. I can't find the pasuk where he says, Ata. Okay, so that's the point. So here it is. We have Yosef, who's a criminal, who's just brought out of prison, and he has the audacity to offer a suggestion and a solution. And this is what the Rebbe says over there, that not only did he interpret the dream, but he gave the advice. And that was the distinction between Yosef's interpretation and the other interpretation. I find this so amazing concerning the issue that we're talking now about Chachmas Chitzenis and Torah. One of the things that we say is Chachma b'goyim tamen, but Torah b'goyim al tamen, loy tamen. There's wisdom by the non-Jewish world. In other words, Chachmas Chitzenis, there's wisdom there. They'll get high marks in IQ, but then it's not Torah. What means it's not Torah? So, and this idea that it's not Torah means two things. Usually it means that it doesn't demand anything from the person. You can have very high IQ, but your lifestyle doesn't reflect that at all. You could be doing terrible things. You could be a gangster, you could be a murderer, you could be a thief. By Judaism, we say the opposite. There's no split. There's no separation. Your lifestyle has to reflect your wisdom. Like it says in the Rambam, a chochem is nicker in this way and that one the other way. But there's another thing I realized in the last couple of years. Torah miloshna hira. I should have mentioned that. It's a guide for life and it's an instruction. It's a solution. It tells you what to do about it. Yosef was the only one that interpreted the dream and he gave the solution. Torah has to be a solution to the problem in the end. And this is so ironic right now, what's going on in Eretz Yisrael. People talk, they talk about protest, injustice, or they'll say the force is never going to accomplish anything. We have to do it through influence, not through power. There has to be a resolution. You listen to these words, the words sound fantastic. It sounds like Yemei Mashiach. But it has nothing to do with reality. We're dealing with somebody who wants to murder you. You're talking about peace. The other person doesn't want peace. What planet are you on? And that's what it means. Chochma b'goyim tamen. The idea sounds like a beautiful idea. In fantasy land. In fiction. But not in reality. Chochma b'goyim tamen. The words, they sound so noble. They sound so beautiful. They sound so poetic. It has nothing to do with reality. And I find this so much, when you hear some people talk and you listen to words, there's very nice words. But that's why we need Torah. Torah is not anywhere else. The only way you'll find the right way how to lead a life for a Yid is through Torah. And this brings us to a Moiridik Amais, which I'm sure I also said before, which the Rebbe brings in Kuntas and Yonash Torah Chassidus. It's such an important story. The Frierdiker Rebbe was once traveling on a train, on a locomotive, and he was sitting with a bunch of Jewish intellectuals, and they were having a discussion with which political system does the Torah agree. One person said Zionism, one person said monarchism, one person said socialism, one person said this, that, and the other thing. And each one brought a proof from the Torah that the Torah believes in this system. Then they turned to the Frierdiker Rebbe and they asked him, what do you say? And the Frierdiker Rebbe said that in the world there is no good without bad. Only the Torah is the ultimate perfection and the ultimate good. The Torah is the source for the good that's in every single one of these systems. What an unbelievable answer. In other words, the Torah contains the good ideas, the good spirit of every single movement. But if you take it out of the Torah, and then it becomes an end in itself, then it becomes twisted and warped and perverted. And that's what happened time and time again we see in history. Starting from Korach. We have beautiful words, revolution, democracy, misam chalayish. And the same story happened with Nazism. For the Germans, they thought this was amazing. Sophisticated knowledge, and then it becomes twisted, Rahman al-San, to commit the greatest atrocities. And the same thing happened with communism. Utopia, equality. And then what happens? Again, we kill millions and millions and millions in the name of that. And then in the end, it always turns against the Jews. And that's what the Rambam writes. The Hellenists, it sounded very beautiful. They're talking of philosophy and rationale and logic. Beautiful words. But really, in the end, it comes back to harass you, betray you, crush you. And And like the Rambam says that the Yevonim in the end, Poshtu Yodom b'mamoinam u'bivneseyim. And this is what you have to realize right now. All these concepts that have to do with progressivism, it really comes from Yiddishkeit. The idea, civil rights, human rights, and respect, these are all, and they call it Tikkun Olam, even though they don't know what they're talking about. These things have a basis in Torah because the Torah believes in these things. But when you divorce it from the Torah, and then you make up your own definitions, then it becomes completely twisted, and you have a question: if your dog is drowning, or your friend is drowning, or a human is drowning, who should you save? And you say, how can I let my dog drown? My dog was always so nice to me. It makes no sense. I should save a stranger who's drowning before my dog. That's injustice. You can come up with all sorts of theories. Again and again, and this is what's happening. So the Eibush should help that we have to learn the lesson, finally, to learn more and more of Chochmas HaTorah, and to go to the Shem and Torah, which remains with Chisom Mishal Koyin Godel. And then we come to the right conclusions of what is the moral and ethics that we have to follow. And the Eibush should help that just like Hey Tevis is coming Sunday, the day of Didan Notzach, it should be the Didan Notzach of this war right now. And as we said in the bracha of Hadlakas HaNeres, Sha'osa Nisim Laviseinu, by Yom HaMehem Bizman Hazeh, now we should see miracles. L'hoidei Salahalal, Begula Amitzah Shleima, take it from Yad Mamish. Posting from my home, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarich, your man in Melbourne.